Live and direct. Again, live and direct. You're tuned into the Bro Diallo Show, broadcasting straight out of the sanctuary hypocrisy that is the city of Chirac, state of Illinois. This is Bro Diallo. Today is August 31st, 2018, in the year of your Lord, that is. And I'm glad you're with me. The temperature drop. We're heading into fall. They already got Halloween decorations up in the stoves. What's up with that? I don't know. I can't myself just take over. I guess. It's always something. Always something happening. Alright, I can't hear myself too well. That could be because of the background noise, but if you can hear me, then I guess that's all that matters. If I'm not coming through via AM 1680, TuneIn app, iTunes Radio, or www.que4.org. If you're not hearing me clear on the various outlets, let me know, and I'll see. But it looks like it's coming through on this side, so hopefully you can hear me. And I can't say hopefully. If you've been listening to the show, you know I got a brother who's strong in his walk with the Lord. And in his walk with the Lord, he sometimes tries to evangelize me. And my brother and I now have a unofficial but public record deal that if I accept Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior, then he will become a vegan. So there's all of that. And I don't know. I was told by someone that I could just say, I accept Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior, and then just pretend that I believe, since there's no God or anything, there's really no consequences. But then my brother's all the way in Atlanta. So how do I know he ain't on the swine? He ain't, gnawing on gristle and sucking bone marrow. There's no way to tell. So, but he's a Christian, so that means he can't lie, right? Anyway, but I'm not a Christian, so I could lie. I don't know. But anyway, the reason I'm thinking about that, let's just get on with the show. The reason I'm thinking about that is he told me at one time, you're not supposed to say hopefully. Because when you say you hope, I hope this. I hope this happens and I hope that happens. Then you're putting your agency in the secular world. And you're putting power and you're putting your faith in the secular world. So you shouldn't be hoping. You should be engaged in prayer. And you should say prayerfully. So if you want something to happen, you should be engaged in a meditation and meditative prayer that you want this thing to happen for you. You want this occurrence to go through. You want these blessings. So he said, don't say hopefully, say prayerfully. Now, I'm anti-hope, actually. Derek Jensen does a lot of writing about the very concept of hope. And he gave this kind of convoluted definition of hope. Derek Jensen said that hope is a longing for a condition or outcome over which you have no agency. And what that means in a less, white scholarly way, means that hope is nothing more than you don't have any power over a situation, but you're still emotionally invested in it. Like, I hope this man come round me. I hope this man come round. Or, man, I hope something happened before they cut these lights off. So you emotionally invest yourself in a reality, in a condition or the change of a condition or an event over which you have no agency. So all you can do is fall back and let it play out. but you're emotionally invested in it playing out a certain way. And so he says losing hope is actually one of the best things that could happen to an individual or to a movement or to a collective. And I agree with that. I just put it, in my own vernacular, I say hope is dope. It gives you a temporary high, but when you come down off that high, your problems, if they haven't changed at all, then more likely than not, they've gotten worse. And, we talk about people, you keep hope, and a lot of these inspirational spiritualists. Someone just said, can't hope be action? No, action is action. Hope is hope. We got various words for various things. Why we gotta use one word for everything? I don't know why. We got, you go by a dictionary, it's huge. Dictionaries are like 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 pages now. We don't have to say, this is frustrating me too. Nothing against you, David, who said, can't hope be action? Hope can't be action, because then what we gonna do with action? That's a word. It has a right. The term action matters. So why are you going to call I'm out here I'm engaged in hope. No. Hope is not action. Hope is what I said. It is what it is. Hope can be, hope can be fused with action. You can be hopeful while you're acting. But again, if you're acting, you don't really need hope. I don't have to say, Lord, I hope I make it home after the radio show. Lord, I hope I make it home. I don't hope that I make it home. I have the keys to my car. I have my ability to drive. I have the knowledge of where I'm going and how to get there. I have a level of competency on how to drive a car. And I've made this trip from the Q4 studios. Shout out to John and the whole Q4 staff. I've made this trip from Q4 radio to my home and back again well over 200 times. Well over. I'm going into my third year here. So I could add hope to that. I could put a little bit of hope on top of all that competency, on top of all that lived experience, on top of all that concrete reality, material, flesh and bone reality. I could throw a little dash of hope in there, but for what? It's a waste of psychological energy. It's a waste of emotional energy. Why? Why am I? What hope got to do with it? Now, if there was a bunch of goons downstairs who had some issues with what I said, if there are a bunch of people downstairs, white nationalists or Hebrew Israelites or black feminists or a whole mobs of other people whom I've offended over the years, over the weekend, over the last couple of minutes, and they were all piled up outside with pitchforks, bricks, and they were like, come on downstairs. When you go off the air and you come downstairs, we're going to have words with you. Then I could be like, oh, Lord, I hope I make it out of here. I hope I make it home. Because I don't really have the means. Like, if it's one or two cats, then I can go down there and handle my business. But if it's like 1,200 people down there calling for my blood, then that's when I'm like, well, I'm emotionally invested in getting home. I would really like to get home. It's something that I have a great desire for. But I don't really have what it takes to make it through that mob. I don't have the agency. I don't have the power, the resources, or the standing to do it. You understand? So then that's when hope comes into it. But what is hope going to do for me? Nothing. So I can say, well, is there an alternative interest? Can I put a call out to my people? Can I holler at my people on the south side to come, like, I got people out here waiting for me. I need my people to rally up. Then again, that's action. So I don't really need hope. If I got my people on their way, and by the time I log off this radio program, my people's is there. And then I'm like, well, I'm about to lock arms with my people and we about to throw down with these other people. So where's hope? Hope is dope. And I think we give a little bit too much to hope. And a lot of times I find that hope can be a hindrance to action, especially when you're hopeful. Hopefulness versus just regular old hope means that not only are you invested in an outcome over which you have no agency, Not only are you emotionally invested in an outcome over which you have no agency, you have a strong feeling that the outcome will happen, even though you have no agency. Like we were hopeful about Obama. So even though the evidence pointed to he wasn't about to do nothing for nobody, we were hopeful. And so a lot of times hopefulness, now I see black people have no hope that Trump will do the right thing, by and large, outside of Kanye, his fake ass, let me not go down that rabbit hole. Outside, but we have no hope in Trump. And I think that's a good thing. If we had hope in Trump, I think it'd be a very bad thing. And we have no hope in Trump. Therefore, I see black people taking it back to the streets. Black people all of a sudden again have issues with things for 8 years they had no issue with. Black people have issues with the U.S. military machinations in Africa. Black people have issues with war crimes of the United States. Black people have issues with the president failing to live up to his political agenda. Black people have issues with making excuses for the failings of the president. So now all of a sudden, now that we've given up hope, we are more active, we're more critical, and to a certain extent, we're more realistic about what the office of the president can and will do for us, and what we must do for ourselves, and what we must do in opposition to the federal government. So hope is dope. I don't mess with hope. I don't inspire hope. I don't preach hope. I don't sell hope. I don't mess with hope. I say we emotionally divest. Y'all sitting around hoping LeBron James School will inspire other celebrities to open more boutique schools for a small fraction of hand-picked, privileged, black, underprivileged, black youth. We got a lot of hope. I say, aside from hope, let's do some critical evaluations. Let's look at the ultimate outcome. Let's look at how past benevolent acts by rich blacks with their boutique hand-picked causes. Let's look at how it plays out in the past, look at how it's proceeding now, and how it will potentially play out in the future. Forget about hope. And I don't hope his school do well. I don't hope it does bad. I don't need to hope. I can take a look at the data. I can go visit the website. I can track the young people. There's a lot of things. I ain't got to hope for nothing, good or bad. I can know. So that's all. Anyway, back to my brother. So my brother is anti-hope. But then he says you shouldn't say you hope, you pray, because he believes that if you want something to happen and you have no worldly agency over the outcome of a situation, you need to say pray. So you have to say prayerfully. So instead of, if I had a mob down, I don't have to say, I hope I make it home. I'm supposed to say, I'm prayerful that I'll make it home. Or if there was a mob downstairs waiting for me, I'd say, I prayerfully hope to navigate the mob. Stupid, right? Is that a step up, down? I mean, I guess you're doing something. Prayer is an action, a stupid action, a pointless action, an action that yields nothing but self-delusion. But sometimes self-delusion isn't always a bad thing, I guess. I don't know. I shun self-delusion. I avoid it. But yeah, hope is not action. Hope can be infused with actions, or actions can be totally devoid of hope. Most of the things I do, I have no hope involved in it. In my life, there's no hope infused in it. And, let me not be a curmudgeon. If you hope your team, you shouldn't be watching no damn NFL. Is it still okay to watch basketball? So if the basketball chasers instead of the football chasers. If you hope your team makes it to the NBA finals, or baseball, I guess. Has baseball pissed us off yet? If you hope your team makes it to the World Series, I guess there ain't nothing wrong with that. I guess. Ain't nothing you could do about it. You ain't on the field. You wearing that musty ass jersey on game night does not impact the outcome, whatever superstitions and rituals. But I don't have really no problem with that. You have no agency over who gonna win whatever ball chasing game. I think it's all rigged. I see I see white folks cheat over a back alley crap game. They cheat. So it's billions of dollars on the line for these pro sports. You think it ain't no cheating involved? But whatever. It's like, to me, this basketball and football stuff ain't no different than world wrestling entertainment. I think it's all fixed. It's rigged, as Trump will say. But anyway, I don't care if you have hope in that arena. Where I have issue is when people got hope over political, material, cultural, social realities. I hope the cops don't kill my child. That's when you doing that time kind of hoping. Instead of, I'm going to get out here and make the conditions so that our black children aren't dying, and I'm going to make sure, as we're making a transition from black children being killed to black children being able to navigate the world safely, I'm going to impose some real consequences on anybody that harms our youth, our offspring. Whoa, 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 whoa. Now, to me, when hope comes, I hope they don't kill. I hope Trump don't get elected because he going to do some bad stuff on us. Now, when the hope gets outside, so there are areas where if you messing around and you involved in hoping for stuff, it doesn't really matter. But I think we take hope way too far. Hope is dope. And then, for some people, they smart enough to abandon hope, but then they go into prayer. No, you don't just sit hoping, you pray on it. Now, that's like rejecting Christianity because it's a alien slave religion that's been anti-African in its practices, and then you go embrace Islam. So going from hope to prayer is like going from Christianity to Islam, eating those little crackers that is Jesus's body to bumping your head on the floor at the mosque. It's not an improvement. I can't fully say it's a regression. It might be a standstill. It might just be a, flipping of the pillow because the other side's a little colder, but you still sleep. And that be that. Now, let's actually talk about what I had intended to talk about. And I hope y'all still listening. See, I have no agency. I can't make y'all keep listening. I can't stop y'all from listening. But I have no agency over what y'all do. But I can give quality content, show up consistently, do what I can do on my side and leave hope to the side. Remember, if you were listening Wednesday, I said I had some good news. And I didn't want to, and I jawboned, I talked a little too long to where if I had given the good news, I wouldn't have been able to tear down the good news with some sober realities. I don't know. I wish I could have a positive show. They came out with this positive news network, right? They came out with this positive news network. They said, we're only going to report positive things, kittens being rescued from trees, people giving kidneys to strangers for kidney transplant, prom queens donating turkeys at homeless shelter. We're only going to give good news, the Good News Network. No homicides, no murder, no political corruption, no overseas strife, no economic down. We're just going to feed you what's good in the world. And it tanked. Bomb, bomb, bomb. They hoped y'all would watch them, and y'all didn't. And so I told you this, and this is another rabbit hole. Forgive me, because I got a lot to get to, and I shouldn't be indulging myself, but y'all can hope that I can stop with these rabbit holes. I don't think we should feel bad being oriented towards negative stuff. Depending on where you live, if there's an accident on the road and people slow down to look at the accident, where I'm from, they call that rubbernecking. You slow down and you see an accident, and sometimes it ain't even an accident. I'll be in a congested lane on the lakeshore, and it's somebody changing a tire on the side. Y'all slowing down for somebody changing a tire? It ain't like it's no muscly man changing a tire with his shirt off or some voluptuous woman changing a tire in a miniskirt. It's a regular old pedestrian, a regular old hump, a regular old proletariat changing their tire on the and people slowing down. Oh, look at them on the road. Where I'm from, they call that rubbernecking. Here, I think they call it a gaper's block. I don't know. Everywhere you go in the country, there's a different term for this. And I understand. I don't think that's negative. All these spiritualists, all these enlightened, chakra aligned, vibrational free, yo-ho, ring-him, kyo, positive people don't understand our evolution. It is healthy that we give attention to negative stuff. You ever see like, ooh, that smells bad. Ooh, and if you go and tell somebody, ooh, this smells horrible, and people are like, what? Ooh, let me smell it. That's terrible. And then you want to share with somebody, smell this bad thing. It's bad. Humans are oriented to give attention to negative things because that is central to our survival. As I said before, as we were evolving in the motherland, in the cradle of not only human existence, but the cradle of human civilization, Mama Africa, when we were evolving there, the human beings that were more oriented towards positivity and had the capacity to look past or to ignore negativity didn't survive long enough to pass their genes on. The brother walking through the savannah, smelling the flowers, petting the kittens, doesn't see and then there's a lion. I ain't gonna focus on that lion. That's negative. I want to focus on danger. And I ain't gonna let my mind go to that. I'm not gonna be negative. I want to pet this lion cub and smell this flower and eat this mango, and it's all positive. I only deal with the positive. Then he got his head bit off. But then the brother that was creeping, he was like, I ain't walking through the savannah. I'm going to stay in the forest. I'm hiding in these trees. I'm ducking, and danger everywhere. You see that over there? That's terrible. You see that over there? Oh, what? That's the dude that eventually got around to having sex and passing on his negativity genes. And he had a higher survivability rate. So if you're driving, I'm like, wow, look at that accident. And your mind turns to, wow, that accident, that could have been me. I could have an accident. Let me slow down. Wow, look at the horrors. People who focus on negativity tend to be make better, more positive contributions to the society. Just go look at history. Read about the negative people. The miserable people. I don't care if it's Malcolm X or Karl Marx. Malcolm X would have been a total buzzkill. You invite Malcolm X to the cookout, the first thing you're going to say, look at all that swine on the grill. And then it's going to go downhill from there. Malcolm X was a negative dude. Probably wasn't that fun at parties. We love him now, but we probably wouldn't have invited him to our kickback. He didn't drink alcohol, critiqued everything. But like I said, being negative and being willing to focus on the negative makes you want to engage the negative, and the only way to correct negativity is to be willing to acknowledge and engage with it. The people who, I don't deal with no negative, tend to be the most toxic, stagnant, backwards, regressive people. Peep that. And they always feel so superior. Oh, you over there feeling sad. I send it to the universe. My high, like Oprah Winfrey. The only thing Oprah's going to be famous for is having a lot of money and consuming a lot of crap. Because she's focused on the positive. So be Malcolm, don't be Oprah. And so it's an evolutionary thing. You don't have to feel bad because you could be scrolling and you see online happy laughing babies, and you scroll on by, and then you see hood fight. And then you click on hood fight instead of happy babies. That's evolution. Don't let people call you negative. Even if you're being negative. Oh, let them call you negative. Let me change that. Let them call you negative. Negative is not really bad in that context. Being negative in that context is like being HIV negative. It's a good type of negative, not the bad kind of negative. It's evolution. It's surviving. So pay attention to everything that's wrong. Focus on everything that's wrong. Engage with everything that's wrong. Don't rise above it when you're not above it. But moving on. I'm indulging myself too much. But this is my extended day. So it is what it is. Let me start by wishing Chairman Fred Hampton a happy birthday. Chairman Fred Hampton's birthday was yesterday, which is considered, his birthday is considered the culmination or the pinnacle of Black August. A very thick, everything from Marcus Garvey's birthday to Fred Hampton's birthday. There's just so much, from slave revolts to urban uprisings. The Jonathan Jackson, John G. Jackson, George Jackson. So much going on in August, in the Black August event. And every year, this will be my third year, I'm definitely going to play my favorite doc from Fred Hampton, a compilation of his words and a reveal of the corrupt conspiracy to assassinate this brother. But more on that. I was going to talk about some good news. But like I said, I wanted, before I did, I promised y'all some good news because it ain't enough good news. That's how I went on that tirade about the natural evolutionary tendency of negativity. And also, let me tell you one more thing about their line where they talk about having negative views will ill affect your health. It does not. There's no neurological, biological, physiological evidence of that. You can go read Barbara Ehrenreich, who is a neurological, biological scientist who wrote a book after she got cancer, and they told Barbara Ehrenreich, hey, you got cancer, you got to be positive with your cancer. Don't be negative. And she was like, but I got cancer. I'm pissed off. I don't like this. And they were like, you got to have hope. You got to stay positive. You got to put a smile on your face. And she was like, hell to the no. They were like, well, if you're not positive, you don't have a smile on your face, if you're not hopeful, then it's going to make your cancer worse. And she stayed negative, and she survived breast cancer. And then she did some neurological, psychological, biological, physiological research and say, well, did my negative feelings really ill affect my progress? And they found out it's no. And then they do later research to find that people that cuss, people that bang their fist on tables, it's a great stress reliever. And they tend to be more intellectual. It is what it is. So, China Fox and Chris Marshall, they actually have a show called Negative Vibes Only. So negativity is on the come up. And I hope y'all wake up to the value of negativity. And it ain't really, to me, it's not negativity. To me, I don't strive for negativity. To me, it's just being realistic. If it's effed up, I'm going to call it. If it's wonderful, I'll call it. You know. But I don't want to sit here selling y'all pipe dreams. It's all good. We was kings and queens and all that. Yeah, you know. And I hate kings and I hate queens. I hate the monarchical system. Why? I mean, anyway, can I move on? Let me get to my good news. The state of California, Governor Jerry Brown has outlawed essentially the cash-based bail bond system and has gone to a risk-based bail bond system. So that means if you get arrested in the state of California and you go before a judge, the judge, by law, cannot put a cash bond on you. That's right. You can walk out of jail without paying a dime. You ain't got to worry about the bondsman. You can get your niece, your nephew, your cousin, your auntie out of jail for free, no money. Okay. That's it. Praise him. Praise has got to go up. You mean getting arrested? I've had to post bail 2 times in my life. And now you mean to tell me when our brothers and sisters are in the belly of the beast, they ain't got to put up no more money to get out of jail? Come on now. Praise you. Thank you, Jerry Brown. Thank you, California. Thank you, California legislature. Glory! Glory! Okay. That's a good thing. And that's why I say, colored folks, black folks, you should vote. should vote. That's the kind of stuff you get. That's what you get. When you're able to vote, you can't vote for freedom. You're not going to be able to vote for abolition, but you can, at the very least, depending on which legislators you put in power, depending on what policymakers, what platform, what political power you vote into power, you can get certain concessions. You can free up, loosen up, open up certain elements of the society as you navigate and seek to fundamentally transform or dismantle or overthrow that society. And so California has stated by law they're going from a cash-based system to a risk-based system, which means if you commit a capital crime, i.e. a crime, or if you are accused, you're innocent until proven guilty. But if you are accused of a capital crime or a sex-related crime, then there's no bail for you. You have to stay until trial. But all non-capital offenses, you will be released based on your history, your criminal history, based on your likelihood of returning to answer, to speak to the charges, and to follow through on the case. Now, California is the most liberal state in the union. It has some of the most progressive policies, laws, and practices in the union. And that's not just for liberal in terms of the citizens voted in there was a couple of laws, like I think Prop 8 and Prop 187, where the citizens of California said they wanted to put harsh restrictions on immigrants and illegal immigration and purge immigrants. They wanted to ban gay marriage, and the Mormons from Utah came over and financed a campaign to ban gay marriage, and the liberal California government was like, we're not going to allow this 187 through. We're not going to allow the anti-gay marriage ban. And then right now, California is gearing up to sue the Trump administration and the federal government, the EPA, because California has some of the highest emission standards in the country, one of the greenest states that pushes hardest for renewable energy and reduction of carbon emissions. And the EPA and the Trump administration is trying to do away with the higher standards of California. California said, no, we're green, we're liberal, we're progressive. And now here's another evidence, but here's the rub with that. California is also one of the most classist and racist states in the nation. And that's why you can't really get too cozy with liberalism. I mean, you take your wins when you get them. Now, you get arrested in California because if you're black, you're more likely to be arrested. You're more likely to be harassed, murdered. Well, you know, one of the most famous cases of police brutality and the cops getting off with nothing, Rodney King, Stephon Clark. I mean, there's some of the most high-profile police brutality, prison riots, racist assaults, young black girls getting stabbed on the Bay Area Transit. So California is this place of contradictions. And that's why you can't get with liberalism. And that's why, even though it's good news, I'm glad there are going to be a lot more people that the predatory bail bonds industry. Because this is how bail bonds work. If you get arrested, some of y'all ain't been arrested. I've been arrested a couple of times. Never been convicted of a crime. I've been to court, never had it. Hey, you know what? That deserves praises going. I've been arrested, but never been evicted. The judge said not guilty. Get out of my court. Yes. Won't he do it? Did he do it? Let me go on and knock on synthetic wood. I've been arrested. And not for noble stuff too. Yes, I have been detained and arrested in groups for going to protest and all that liberal stuff that black people do if they evolve from wanting to positive change in their community to being black militant revolutionaries. I've been arrested, getting into fisticuff fights, you know, things I'm not proud of. But I've never been convicted of a crime because generally, especially, and this all happened in Missouri, because in Kansas City, it's a small place. And when you get known as a troublemaker, if you get known as a mouthy dude, or like, shout out to uppity negresses, but being an uppity Negro, the police kind of watch you. And my father had a history of crime. And so, you know, this is the kind of place where dudes, where the cops, you know, they get the job and they'll be arresting 3, 4, 5 generations of family. So they're like, oh, you Artie's boy. They say stuff like that. The cops know where they see you in one part of the neighborhood, and they were like, you live over in East Hills Village. What you doing out here on 39th Street? Violation of my civil rights, but that's how they do. So anyway, once you get a name, once you get known in a small city, the cops know your name, know your face, know you're uppity, know you got a chip on your shoulder, know you have a problem with the system. They'll run you in, and they'll hit you with stuff they know what to say. But I'll say, long story short, I've been arrested a couple of times. I had to go to the judge. And you make bond. And the judge will say, you have $50,000 bond. And what the bond system, the for-profit private industry bail bond system, what they do is they'll pay your full bond if you pay them 10% of the bond. But what a bond is exactly what it is, a bond. When you bond, you connect something together. So you give the court your money, and when you show up for the court date, they give you all your money back. So they just hold this to bond you to the court. It's like, yeah, we got $50,000 of your money, you're going to show up. And depending on the nature of the crime, the higher or the nature of the risk, the flight risk, or the height or the level of the crime that you commit, they will raise your bond. So if Jeff Bezos, who's worth $180 billion, whatever, I mean, why bother counting at that point? If he gets arrested and the judge says, we'll give you a $1 million bond, he writes a check, he walks out, show up 3 months later for the court date, they give him his $1 million back. But me, old struggler ruggler, old poverty poppy, Mr. Ain't Got Nothing, pot piss in, window throw it out of, I go to court and the judge says, well, we're going to give you $1,000 bond. Like, where am I supposed to get that kind of money? That kind of money doesn't even exist. And so then I call up a bondsman. He'll get the court $100, $1,000. I pay him $100. But the trick is, he'll get that $1,000 back and still have my $100. But more likely, the average bond in California is $5,000. So the average person to get out of jail in California had to pay a bondsman $50,000. The average bond. The judge just kind of says, and judges are really detached from the regular world. They just throw time and numbers at people like that stuff has no meaning in the real world. We're going to detain you for 3 days, $50,000 bond. Okay, next case. All right, let's get out of here. Time for lunch. I couldn't do that job. I could just be upending people's entire lives and then go to lunch. That would eat away at me. Like, man, I'd be sitting there thinking, that dude I sentenced 10 years ago, how's he doing? Wow, you know. I would be thinking about that all the time. I couldn't do that job. And I don't think it's a commendable job. I think they're really scumbags. I think they're really elitist sociopaths. Because they just be giving out numbers and times for stuff. Ain't nobody even got hurt. Oh, you injected a needle in your own arm and got high of your own account? You harmed yourself? I'm going to incarcerate you for 20 years for hurting yourself. You hurt me worse. I'm already hurting myself. You know, just let me go, continue to be me if you want to punish me. But anyway, the average bail in California is $50,000. So that means the average person that gets arrested in California would have to pay $5,000 to get out for their freedom. And that bondsman gets $5,000. Every time you get locked up and then you get out on bond, $5,000. And then the bail bondsman gives the court $50,000 and then collects $5,000 from you, and then you show up. And then if you don't show up, they come get you, they come find you, come kick in your door, and that's The Dog, that reality series, that racist mullet wearing redneck, The Dog. They come get you. Then not only do they get their 50 G's back, they got your $5,000, whatever type of bond that was put, reward for capturing you. More money. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry, the bond industry, and they just blew it up. Boom, it's over. It doesn't exist. But the problem is racist cops, racist judicial system sit. So there's a strong, because the ACLU actually supported this bill. And then as the bill went through processes and other legislators got their grimy hands on it and they started to switch change the ACLU said, we can no longer support this bill because there's no provisions, there's no real consideration for the fact that the California prison system is racist, the California law enforcement is racist, and potentially the judges will be letting white folks go and telling black people you're a risk. You're a higher risk to your community. You're a flight risk. You stay in jail, and there's no way you can't even pay your way out. So you can't win. You can't make it, and you can't get out of the game. So even when we're going to be dancing in the streets, no more bail bonds, we know, because I think that white people should not be allowed to sit to police black people. White people should not be allowed to prosecute, arrest, police, incarcerate, or sit in judgment over black people, because I believe in the registered race offender. You know, like registered sex offender. If you commit a crime against children, you're not allowed to be around children anymore. If you commit, white folks have done so much crime and relentless aggression, racist white aggression against us. It's just, why would we trust you? So until white folks get their act together, I don't want to sit around, I hope this judge ain't racist. I hope this cop didn't pull me over because I'm black. I hope this prosecutor ain't dropping all these charges on my head because he's racist. Hope is dope. So even though I think that the cash bond system should be done away with, and I see the merits of a risk-based bond system, it still sets up for even a different type of exploitation. It doesn't end, it goes from economic exploitation to social and cultural exploitation, but it's still exploitation and oppression. Sorry. So that's why I didn't even want, it's good news that this is a trend. But black people, that's why you engage in politics, not just voting. This bill needs to be reformed. It needs to be amended. It needs to be strengthened, in fact. There needs to be a racial bias addendum to this. And there needs to be a racial bias oversight and consideration and review. You bang on it, you keep critiquing it. That's politics. Politics ain't voting. Politics is advancing policy, refining policy, processing policy, implementing policy, reviewing policy, restricting policy. That's what politics is. And until we burn this all down, we better know how to navigate it. And let me tell you something. All these people saying, oh, you don't vote, you don't engage in politics in this system. Let me tell you something. You think you're going to go from apolitical, non-bureaucratic to revolution and running your own system? That's a game. That's a hustle. So, shout out to all my brothers and sisters in California. I was just there. And happy birthday to one of the greatest artists on the West Coast, if not all coast, Brother Reefa. It's your birthday today, right? I have to confirm that. But I think it's Reefa's birthday. The son, he's a Panther Cub. He's the son of Oakland Panthers. Oh, wait, is it your birthday? No, I just think it's a friend anniversary. I'm sorry, it ain't your birthday. But anyway, shout out anyway to Reefa, Chuck, all my people on the west side, the best side, the fresh side, Oakland cats. But yeah, Oakland's an extremely contradictory place. It confuses me. I have to admit, I don't understand it. And you know, the California cats, y'all tried to explain it to me, and y'all just confused me more. It's all this liberalism, all this progressivism, all this forward thinking, and it's still racist AF. Guess. Yeah, it's just to say it ain't gonna work. Yeah, I know it's still gonna be jacked up. They still gonna find ways to be white. They gonna white it up. Or in Hawaii, they say they're gonna Halley it up. They call the white folks. They just gonna white it and cracker and racist it up. But that's why we got to keep fighting. At least it's out there. We understand that it shouldn't be have to pay to get out of jail. Shouldn't be no jails. Prison abolition. But I still think if I'm arrested, I would prefer to have to fight without that an additional predatory system of bail bonds. You have to fight with the bail bonds and the court. Now you just fight with the court. And the bail bonds, many of them are shutting down their doors. There's still going to be bounty hunters and all that. Now we just got to keep, like I said, you got to keep fighting, man. It's a struggle. But good thing now we found out that negativity and hostility and lack of hope aren't bad things. So you can live a life of struggle and still live an abundant, full, purposeful, and even enjoyable life without all that mysticism. But let's jump to the other side of the country. That's that on that. I'm gonna go ahead and cross that off. But I'm gonna be watching that. I'm telling y'all, look for updates. Because I know when they go to evaluate that system, they're going to find that black people are deemed higher risk even though they committed lower level crimes, and white people are deemed low risk or no risk even though they committed more atrocities. And so we know how it's going to play out. But that don't mean we stop. The struggle ain't over. Illusion will continue. Now we got a new set of weapons and we got a new battlefield. So the struggle continues. And we will win without a doubt. Lucio will continue. Florida governor race. This is this is part of the blue wave that they're predicting, that they're seeing black folks and leftists and Democrats winning in places they don't normally win. The Florida governor race is this brother named Andrew Gillum, who's a Democrat, the first black man ever to win a Democratic primary for governor of Florida. Now this dude, he was actually a lower level politician. I think he was like an elected official, city commissioner or anything. But the reason he got to where he is because way back in the Trayvon Martin murder, when Trayvon Martin was murdered by Zimmerman, a group of community activists went down to the state house to occupy the state house, and they were like, we're gonna stay here till we get justice. We're gonna chain ourselves to the rafters, and we're not going nowhere. And this Andrew Gillum was one of them suit tie cats, polished dude, college educated, president of always into politics when he was in college, president of the student board. It's one of them clean cut, striving type, make you proud type brothers, making us all look good. And anyway, he to the surprise of his colleagues and to the surprise of the activists, actually when the police came in to clean out the state house, he put his body between the police. He stood with the people, which I know is a shock because public representatives who are supposed to be our representatives and work for us, actually working for us and working with us and actually directly representing us, that's a silk the shocker. That's shocking. And so anyway, they were like, yo, one politician, one brother out of all these colored dudes in suits, he comes and stops the police. He stands with us. He supports us in our protests. He's trying to fight to get justice for the Martin family. And so anyway, that's how he kind of became known on a larger scale, as being just a rank and file bureaucrat, to being somebody that the Floridians, black Floridians, was like, yo, we got us one. We got us a politician that's for, by, and of us. And so Gillum, rises through the political ranks and runs for governor against three millionaires, three Democratic millionaires, three Obama quality Democrats, corporate crats, as they call them, or mainstream Democrats. And he's a Bernie bro. He's a far left, part of the progressive wing of the Democratic Party. And he's out there talking, the same old stuff is almost exhausting now. Democratic socialism, single player healthcare, taxation of the rich, expansion of public and civil services, right? And all the posters, just like they did with Trump, they said he's coming in dead last. He's going to come in out of 4 candidates. He's coming in 4th. He's going to get the lowest number of votes. He's a protest candidate, and yeah, thank you, Andrew. You're bringing some issues to the fore. We appreciate that you are helping to bring a voice to the voiceless, and real cute little campaign. He spent the least amount of money on his campaign. He was the only non-multimillionaire in the campaign. On the Democratic side, this is a primary, and he whooped all them good white folks, whipped their tail, because he had a grassroots political machine. He snuck up on them from behind. While the other candidates were buying big-time ads and glossy flyers, he had a whole troop of all these Trayvon Martin activists, all these social justice warriors, all these people he stood with. He was like he was other people, and he ran a campaign using rank-and-file people, and they were out knocking on doors. They were going person to person, door to door, because he didn't have money for nothing else. So he had a bunch of volunteers who believed in the ideas of democratic socialism. Anyway, it's an interesting, a real, made-for-TV, heartwarming story. And he's running against this MAGA dude, Make America Great Again, Trump-endorsed Ron DeSantis, who's a far-right Republican. And he won. DeSantis won by a much higher margin than the Democratic race was much more competitive. So Florida is looking like politically, as a state, is starting to split down the middle. It's like there's no middle ground. You're either a MAGA racist, MAGAloid, or you're a socialist. It's like there's no more conservatism because, or normal middle line, center left or center right, across the board type conservatives and Republicans. It's like it's the extremes, which is what happens when extremism comes to the fore. You gotta claim your set, and you gotta rep your set. The line is in the sand. So the pollsters that counted Andrew Gillum out, said he couldn't possibly win, are now saying, yeah, he can't possibly win the primary, wins the primary, and then they're saying, oh, he can't possibly take the state, because you got the cities, Miami, Tallahassee, you got South Florida, that's a lot of blacks, a lot of Latinos, but many of the Latinos are like anti-Castro Cubans. They're loyally Republican and unapologetically overtly racist. And then you got North Florida, which is like the deep South. Parts of Florida operate more like Atlanta. Other parts of Florida operate like rural Alabama. It's a weird, swampy, mosquito-infested state, and so they're saying he's not going to carry the rednecks. He's not going to carry the racist, conservative, anti-Castro, anti-communist Cubans. He can't possibly win. But those same people that say he couldn't possibly be where he is. So anyway, it's going to be an interesting race. We're going to see if this grassroots, and I think his grassroots credentials, unlike Obama, the community organizer, his grassroots credentials were fake as hell. Obama was never grassroots. Obama was never truly, he was always on the payroll of multinational corporations. He worked for defense contractors. He is never a man of the people. He lived in he lived in South Side of Chicago, but he lived in the richest area in South Side of Chicago, right off the campus of University of Chicago, in this huge multi-level mansion. So he ain't South Siding it like I got a South Side it. He was South. There's another way to South Side. So everybody, all South Siders ain't created equal. And he ain't from around these parts, and he ain't been back since he became president. He ain't looked back here. That house sits empty, surrounded by. He's from, but this dude seems like he's not that I agree with him. He's a democratic socialist. I'm a Pan-African revolutionary. So we have in many ways oppositional ideas, but he is, from what I see, what he claims to be. But and y'all heard about that monkey. So when it was announced that Andrew Gillum, because Ron DeSantis, when people run for political office, they actually do research, oppositional research, and they try to anticipate who they're going to run against, because campaigns are very expensive because of money in politics. It's like bribery is legalized in the United States political system. So anyway, he was prepared to run against one of these other rich white folks. And he has all this oppositional research. He has all their dirt. He has all their PP tapes and all that. I'm sure he did nothing. Was absolutely unprepared and wasn't ready to run against Andrew Gillum, and never thought in a million years he'd be running against Andrew Gillum. So he has no dirt. He has no oppositional research. I promise you he doesn't. It's too expensive. You don't ever do that against the lowest statistically impossible candidate. So he thought when he was giving his acceptance speech, because he ran opposed, but he ran by a magnificent margin. He had Trump's endorsement. So when this DeSantis cracker got up and was like, okay, who won the Democratic primary? And it was like Andrew Gillum. He's like, who? What? So he didn't have anything prepared. So he gets on Fox News and says, we're not going to elect Gillum to office. He'll monkey up. He will monkey up the state. And we can't monkey this up. And said electing a black man as governor of California would monkey up the state. So this is going to be an interesting race. Overt racism. And there's this dog whistle racism that they talk about. A dog whistle is when a white person gets on the media and says urban populations are prone to crime. And you know, when he says urban, he means black. And when he says crime, he means black. Oh, that's called a dog whistle. Gillum said the white races aren't using dog whistles anymore. They're using a bullhorn to announce their racism. So while Gillum is talking about, I want to represent the whites, I want to represent all people, I want to be the governor for I want to bring people together, DeSantis is like, nah, nigga, I'm going to huddle up with my people and you do whatever. So the gauntlet has been thrown down. This is going to be an interesting racist, overtly racist thing. And now democratic socialism, folks is talking about it again. And I never see them explain what democratic socialism is. The Democrats hate the fact that their party is infested with these democratic socialists, these Bernie bros. And I'm a socialist. And I don't support democratic socialism because historically, it's just not reasonable. It doesn't make sense. And what democratic socialism is, it's really, the democratic part is really the method of imposing socialism, not really how to practice socialism. And democratic socialism asserts that you can have a non-violent legal progression to socialism, meaning that the capitalists will allow you to vote them out of power. The capitalists will allow you to vote them through popular campaigns, vote away their wealth, vote away their privilege. That's what democratic socialism means. You can bring about a socialist state through democratic means. You can go through the constitutional, legal, democratic processes to take wealth away from the capitalist and redistribute that wealth to the people, with the understanding that the people are the true source and true owners of that wealth. And that the capitalist will sit there and say, darn it, I'm part of the 1%, and I live in a democracy. Therefore, if the 99% vote to take away my wealth, then what can I do? Too bad. Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, the Koch brothers will simply sit back and allow the apparatus of the state to function. They won't overthrow the state. They won't subvert the state. They won't assassinate leaders and do all the stuff they've been doing in order to preserve their standing. That's what democratic socialism is. And everywhere socialism has been imposed to overthrow or displace a capitalist system, it has never been done democratically. It has been started off democratic, but the people always have to go radical. They always have to go militant. They always have to go beyond the limits of democracy. So democratic socialism are one or two things, lying, or three things, lying, stupid, or naive. Bless their hearts. I think some democratic socialism are just lying there front, and that's a hot thing today. It's the trendy type of political ideology. So people say they're democratic socialism, never read a book on socialism, don't have any clue or concept of what socialism is, and the only socialist you tell them name a socialist, and they say Bernie Sanders. They know no other socialist in history or currently in reality. But then you have other people that are sincerely want to believe that they could use the democratic process, that they could use legal means, they can use the U.S. Constitution written by a bunch of pedophilic, raping, enslaving monsters to achieve socialism. And I don't think it's going to happen. And in fact, I hope it happens. I hope that the democratic socialists are right? Hope is dope. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. But that's what it's supposed to be. Because I'm saying that's what democratic socialism is. Democratic socialism says there is no more private property. Your private property rights are done. You can have your personal property, no private property, no wealth accumulation. Is worker owned, people owned. It is a transformative, it is a fundamental transformation. No more profit motive is eliminated. And I know many of us, we were ready, what? I can't own my property. Y'all indoctrinated in this system. You can't, if the white man can't do socialism, then socialism can't be done. Y'all think socialism is unrealistic, it's naive, it's unachievable. In fact, but when the majority of human civilizations and systems have been inherently, naturally, primitive socialism, as Marx called it. But that's not what many socialists mean. Bernie Sanders is not a true democratic socialist. Andrew Gillum, I don't know. It's too early to call it. He's new to me. He might not be new to people in Florida. People in Florida are like, yo, this brother's been in the trenches with us. He's the real deal. Time will tell. I'll take their word for it. There's some sincere activists, some sincere freedom fighters down there in Florida. Some of them say he's the real deal. Other have him side eye. I'm negativity. So the proof is in the pudding. And that pudding still, it's still gelling in the refrigerator. I don't know yet. But what Bernie Sanders is not a true socialist or a democratic or otherwise. What Bernie Sanders actually advocates for is regulated capitalism and social liberalism. That's what democratic socialism under the democratic platform is. They want to regulate capitalism. They don't want to obliterate capitalism. They want to allow the elites to keep their property rights, but they want to confine their property rights. They want to get money out of politics. They want to do away with the Citizens United legislation that essentially allows for unfettered campaign finance from private industry. They want to publicly finance campaigns. They want to regulate corporations through progressive taxation and other agency regulations such as the EPA and oversight of their financial practices. They want to regulate capitalism. And then they want social liberalism. You can gay marriage, single payer health care, free education, but the overall capitalist system will remain intact. It will be a kinder, friendlier capitalism. That's not democratic socialism. That's not any type of socialism, but that is what democratic socialists are pushing through in terms of policy. They're not trying to do away with capitalism. They are not trying to do away with the capitalists. But they do want to mitigate the damage and harm and power of the capitalists. They want to regulate capitalists. And like I said, capitalists will frickin' kill you for their property. Capitalists will frickin' kill you for their profits. Capitalists will frickin' kill you to sustain their privileged position. And even if you're not fighting against them, they will kill you. You can say, I support you. Bezos, have all the money you want. And they will still kill you because they're going to take everything so that you can't live. They're going to destroy ecosystems. They're going to perpetuate war because they overproduce stuff. Then they want to blow it up. And then they want to finance the rebuilding of what they blow up. So capitalists are going to kill you whether you fight them or not. So you might as well fight. And you cannot democratically overthrow capitalists. You cannot democratically, legally, or through policy overthrow capitalism. You can bring certain relief and concessions to the people. You can get Meals on Wheels to your grandma. You can get tuition assistance to your son. You can get your cousin from the other side of the family out of jail. There are certain things you can get out of the political process. Certain levels of relief, certain concessions, as I said. But you cannot get liberation through the political process. Liberation is illegal. Revolution is illegal. And you have to build yourself up, build up your base, build up the understanding, raise the contradictions, as Fred Hampton said. Mobilize enough people around you so that when you do start to move towards the end stage, middle stage of revolution, you're not just clipped off and picked off and murdered by the capitalist. So democratic socialism is at best a delusion. At worst, it's a damn lie. And I don't know why the Democrats can't just say, we're not democratic socialists. Well, the left wing, we want a better regulated. They're FDR Democrats. FDR regulated, well-regulated capitalism, which brought a lot of quote-unquote prosperity and helped to erect and invent. The middle class is an invention. The middle class did not come about as a result of some people in the society getting a good education and working hard. The middle class in America was legislated. It was created through legislation, not through individual people doing work. And now the erosion of the middle class is not because people today are lazier or work less than people did in the 40s and 50s when the middle class was booming and expanding. It is, again, due to legislation and through taxation policies, through public resource allocation. Nobody works for anything. Jay-Z did not, and Beyonce did not work for $1 billion. Yes, they performed. But they got that $1 billion based on the societal value system and taxation system and allotment system. There was a time when performers were considered low-level workers. There were times when people who worked in meatpacking plants would make a middle-class income. Where if you worked in a meatpacking plant, like the Green Bay Packers, you could work, you could afford to allow your wife to stay home, save enough money to send 5 kids to college, have a 2-car garage, own your house, and take a 3-week vacation at least once a year anywhere in the world you wanted to. And now meat packers live in trailers without running water. So the system of value of labor has nothing to do with the specific work you do or don't do. Oh, hamburger flippers don't deserve money, but the Kardashians do. When it's another hustle. But anyway, all that being said, bless your little heart if you're a true democratic socialist. Bless your naive little heart. But what they want is regulated capitalism. And I don't know that's not a sexy word like I'm a democratic socialist versus I'm a capitalist regulator. Democratic socialism. Here's another thing we have to understand from FDR. And you'll start to hear this as election time. I'm an FDR Democrat. He's an FDR Democrat. They thought Obama was an FDR Democrat, but he's a Clintonista. He's a corporatocrat. But democratic socialism as practiced in the United States, actually being a regulated capitalism and social liberalism, is actually a defense mechanism for the capitalist system. It helps to preserve it. FDR, who was considered the socialist president, not only is he the most socialist president who brought America more socialist policies. Him and Lyndon Baines Johnson have been the 2 most progressive presidents. But he said, I did not destroy it because they wanted to overthrow him. They wanted to get this general to raise up a troop and march on the White House and overthrow FDR because he was engaged in democratic socialism, where actually he was regulating the capitalists and being a social liberal. And he said, listen, why y'all trying to kill me? I saved capitalism. If it wasn't for me, the Great Depression in World War II would have led to a communist revolution like in Russia. We would have had Bolsheviks running down the streets of Washington, D.C. I stopped it. I paid off the working classes. But standard socialism does not seek to regulate capitalism, it seeks to obliterate capitalism. It does not seek to reach compromise with the capitalist, it seeks to obliterate the capitalist. And it is not compromising, and it is direct and deliberate, and it's not embedded within a system of capitalism, and it will not be born within the system of capitalism. And then you got scientific socialism. But my time ain't on my side, so we can talk about what the various... Socialism is socialism. But when you talk about democratic socialism, regular socialism, revolutionary socialism, those are the mechanisms or the methods by which you implement socialism. And I think it needs discussion, because now it seems like the Democrats and are about to co-opt the very concept and term of socialism. And on top of that, as the Democrats go towards socialism, the Republicans are moving toward right-wing populism. And I know this stuff might be yawning for you, but it's something we must understand. But let's move on to more important stuff. Kanye apologized, and he cried and apologized. Said he's sorry about his slavery comment, and he's sorry that he wore a MAGA hat. Y'all take that what y'all want to do with it. I wanted to talk about prison reform and the current prison strike. You know, and one thing I said about the prison reform, they keep making us fight for things that we already fought for and won. We already had prison reform. We got prison reform, official reforms in 1971. And in 1971, but I'm gonna have to mark this. This might have to come through on Wednesday, because I gotta get to this toxic militancy. Oh, and Officer Van Dyke, the racist pig, Caucasus Mountain cave dwelling devil that shot Laquan McDonald 16 times. He actually gave an interview, which was against his release, the terms of his release, and the prosecutor actually wants to revoke his bond, put his ass back in jail, because he wasn't supposed to speak to the media. Both the prosecutor and the defense in the Van Dyke case are not allowed to speak to the media, but he's still out here white boying. But basically, he said he's a good Catholic and a family man, so he doesn't know why he should be able to shoot a black youth 16 times, as long as you're a good Catholic and a family man. And he said something that I agree with Van Dyke. And again, Van Dyke is the cop who shot. And again, it doesn't make sense that Van Dyke is the only one on trial, because there was collusion. Every officer at that site, they gave a false statement in a capital crime. If one of my homeboys commits a crime and the police come and ask me, did this happen? And I say, no, that's obstruction of justice. So there should be at least a dozen officers going down for this capital offense with Van Dyke, not just him. But they're going to serve him up as a patsy. And like he said, that his charge is politically motivated. And it's true. Van Dyke is going on trial for the murder of Laquan McDonald not because he killed him, but the climate under which he killed him. He killed that boy, and it was entangled with a larger societal movement, a larger awakening to police disruption, and we had a corrupt mayor who was up for re-election and facing a tough runoff election, and there was several other elections. So it was political. The system don't give a damn about Laquan McDonald, and if he had been killed in a different era under slightly different circumstances, it would be nothing. The cops had killed several other unarmed black youth in this city, and the cops have not been charged. They did it before, they did it after. But Van Dyke just killed this young man at the wrong time on the wrong day, and it is political, and we need to understand that. The system is still don't, black lives still don't matter, but black votes do matter. Black perception does matter. They like to manipulate our perception and pimp our votes and then throw us back in the ghetto to the next election cycle. So even though it's offensive and it's horrible, his prosecution is political. His prosecution should be a legal prosecution. It should be a moral outrage, but it's not. So that's one thing he said that was true. That don't make him any less guilty. It just makes it fortunate that this one particular pig committed an atrocity at the wrong time, and now this one pig out of thousands is going to answer for his crime, potentially. But he's still showing his ass. He's definitely a psychopath, because they've been treating this dude with all the respect you can give a murderer. And he's still showing his ass, still basically bucking the prosecution. And I think the reason they're doing this because his lawyers know damn well he wasn't supposed to be giving any interviews to the Chicago Tribune. I think they want to try to push for a retrial or to delay the trial until after the social and political memory is faded a little more. So I think they're trying to purposely upend this case. But we'll see. They playing games. Now, the topic of the day, what I want to talk about is toxic black militancy. There's been a lot of talk and debate about toxicity. And it came with that whole concept of the toxic masculinity. And they didn't say, I don't care about putting a black in front of it. They just say toxic masculinity, but really what the hood, the streets, the community been talking about toxic black masculinity. They say that masculinity is toxic, violent, predatory, and should be addressed, should be exposed, should be done away with. And a lot of men, a lot of chest thumping, knuckle dragging, manly, burly, beer drinking, football dunking, basketball kicking, whatever. The manly men, the men of men, the alpha males are like my very essence, my mentality is out of whack. But what is under attack. And Umar tells us we got to defend black manhood. We got to put the black man back at the top of the head. And these women, women, and it is a lot of mess, a lot of nonsense being spewed on both sides. Now, I looked at this. When I hear criticisms coming, even from sisters I don't agree with or align with, I listen to black women. So when the black women start saying toxic masculinity, the first thing I say, well, what is that? And a lot of times when people are spewing stuff just because they saw a meme and they try to act like they've really given it critical thought and they haven't, and you question them about it, they take offense. How dare you question me? As if you don't know. Like, I think I might know, but what I'm asking you for, because I want to know what you know. Black men are killing us. Black men are doing this. Black men are doing that. And that's toxic masculinity. And I'm like, well, that's not really what you describe as toxic masculinity is really a byproduct of oppression. And whether you go to the Irish oppressed by the British, whether you go to Algeria under colonization of the French, whether you go to Palestine oppressed by the Zionist, or whether you come to black America oppressed by white America. These are really not, it's not gender-based masculinity that's the problem. This is how people lash out and behave under systemic oppression, multi-generational systemic oppression. And it's not limited to gender. And I find what you define as toxicity present on all sides. It's not limited to gender. Many of the things that women express and engage their toxicity different because this is a patriarchal system which puts certain limits and restrictions on women. So that women don't have the opportunity to express their toxicity because of social norms. Women aren't trained up to be as violent as men or excuse their violence as men or expressive, mobile, and all these things. But within the arena that they're allowed to navigate under patriarchy, they demonstrate the same levels of toxicity. And when the feminists fight for women to get full equality, whether that's a woman become a soldier on the front lines of America's war on terror, or a woman becomes a CEO, or a woman becomes a Secretary of State, every time women have ascended to positions of men, they have demonstrated the same levels of toxicity. We all saw those photos of Abu Ghraib, of those women engaging in torture. In fact, the head of the CIA is a woman now, the first female head of the CIA, and she's a mass murdering torturer monster. So toxicity is not gender-based. But the expression and the ability to express one's toxicity is gender-based, meaning that men express their toxicity different than women, and it's often in a much more grandiose way because men are given certain outlets that are denied or women are suppressed in. I don't know if I'm confusing you. Because if you believe that toxicity is a gender thing and men are toxic, then the solution would be put women in power. Let's get a woman president. Let's get a woman CEO. Let's get women soldiers. Let's get women cops. And problem solved. And let men stay home. Or put them in positions of less power. But then you find all of that has happened. And we haven't had a woman president here in the United States. In 2020, y'all have Elizabeth Warren or Kamala Harris will be president, my prediction. But you've had women prime ministers of Europe. You had Margaret Thatcher, and you want to tell me she wasn't toxic? You had Golda Meir. Woo, she was a monster. Golda Meir, prime minister of Israel. You know. And look at Myanmar, the leader there who is officiating a genocide. Oh, I got a call. Let's get this call before we move on. Caller, you're on the Bro Diallo Show live. State your name. Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, you got to turn off your the show in the background. We're getting feedback.
Yeah, I'm trying to turn it off.
All right. Or just lower the volume.
Yeah.
I still hear it. Hello?
Yeah, it's good. Y'all?
Yes. State your name and alias, where you're calling from.
This is Naeem, man, the Facebook friend calling from New York.
Hey, what's up, man?
What's going on? Yeah, I wanna talk about this toxic masculinity that you're discussing. That term is a misnomer, undoubtedly created by feminists to skew a larger problem. You know, the misplaced aggression towards ourselves. That's not gender specific, as you just said. It's not a gender issue. It's actually a social issue.
Right.
Men and women raise children that grow up to have all these traits. Male and females have these traits. It's a behavioral problem that we need to identify correctly, or we're just going to keep abusing each other with these misnomers and misunderstanding the actual problem. So
I agree.
I don't add masculinity or femininity in front of toxicity.
Right.
It's just a social behavior issue that needs to be addressed. Period.
You're on point. I agree with you. I fully agree with you.
And so, I just wanted to chime in.
I appreciate that, brother. Usually people want to call in and cuss me out. I'm glad that I get calls where people are like, yeah, and we see eye to eye. It doesn't happen enough.
You broke up. I didn't hear you.
I said I appreciate you calling in to express your agreement. Usually people want to call in and cuss me out and tell me where I'm wrong. So it's good to get calls from time to time where you see eye to eye with the caller. I appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
All right, brother. So enjoy your morning. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm hanging up and I'm going to continue listening.
All right, I appreciate you, bro.
Yes, sir.
All right, peace.
Hi.
All right, so we got another brother that understands toxicity is not gender-based, even though the manifestation of toxicity varies between the genders. Okay? There was once a book I had read. I'm not going to tell the name of it. But it says that men's power is like a boulder that smashes a mountain, and women's power is like a stream that erodes a mountain. Now, I don't know how true that is. It's Asian saying. But it does point to the fact that some men can be erosive while other women can be explosive. But again, if I think the reason I oppose the concept of toxic masculinity is because, not because I'm a man and I think it's harming and women talking mean to me. I that's not my issue. To me, because if that, I think that if we go forward with the ultimate conclusion that masculinity is toxic, and we try to suppress, do away with, expel, and end masculinity, and even encourage men to shun their own masculinity, then we'll have feminine toxicity, and we'll have women with their fingers on nuclear buttons, and we'll have women multi-billionaires exploiting the labor of the people, which we've had it. We've already got evidence that toxicity. So women rising to power within this system does not abate toxicity. It just transfers who gets to openly and more aggressively express their toxicity. That being said, there are, being that this system does definitely have toxicity in it, and it's not gender specific, there is toxicity that is ideological toxicity. There is toxicity within practices and protocols and belief systems. And today I want to talk about toxic black militancy, because we have a lot of militancy today, and we take militancy for granted because everybody and their mama is militant at this point. And this wasn't always the case. And I love those memes that millennials are putting out talking about, I'm not my ancestors, you can get these hands. Hey, tell the KKK we ain't our ancestors, even though they still finding brothers and sisters lynched, hanging from trees, mutilated bodies. So, but we say that black people today ain't the black people of yesterday. We ready to throw down. We will not march in the streets and be assaulted like Dr. King. We're not going to bow our heads. We're not going to be nonviolent. And if you bring some, you're going to get some. And there's militancy everywhere. But yet, we are making, as a people collectively, we're making less progress than our non-militant ancestors. How does that happen? We claim that now that we ready to stand up to racists, and if white folks come, if the Ku Klux Klan comes to the hood, we just gonna have a sheet sale, because we're gonna have a whole bunch of fresh white seats, because we're gonna strip those white folks of their sheets and whoop their asses. And we got militancy, and militant rhetoric is the norm, back when it used to be a very rare thing. When Kwame Ture wanted to make a call for black power in 1963, 64, and he was talking to Dr. King, and Dr. King was like, oh, you can't say that. That's too provocative to call for black power. We want justice. We want freedom. We want integration. We want to be your brother. We want to walk hand in hand with you. That we can call for that, but we can't call for power. That's a provocative word. And so the rhetoric that we say now that we take for granted was very, very serious inflammatory rhetoric. You got brothers all over the South, walking and behaving in certain ways that got Emmett Till killed. So there were times where there were real consequences. I got another caller. Caller, you're on the Bro Diallo Show. State your name and alias. Where you calling from?
Hi, this is Ivory. I'm calling from Tennessee.
Hey, how you doing, sis?
I'm doing good. I just wanted to say, when you was talking about how our people isn't our ancestors, and we're not going to be shot down in the streets, or we're not turning the other cheek. And I think that's false, because it's a lot of that going on today. And I know here in Tennessee, a lot of people been marching for different reasons, for a lot of kids being shot by the law task force, juvenile task force, and things like that. So, it's like it's repeating itself. History is repeating itself, and I feel like the black people are gonna find themselves in slavery once again, because it's like we're being punked. We say a thing, we talk, or we're not gonna do this, or we're not gonna do that. But when it's time to actually go to war, everyone is still turning the other cheek. So,
right.
I feel that we are black as a whole. We got something that's not so submissive, but as a whole, as the black people, together, we are very submissive, and we're not speaking their language. The only thing that they understand and they honor is war. And until we're ready to go to war, we just need to shut up. what I wanted to say.
But if you shut up before a war, when you look at Europeans before they go to war, they always have an intensive propaganda campaign. Before George Bush attacked Iraq, the United States spent over 10 years speaking about and demonizing and creating the myth of Islamic terrorism. So if we shut up until it's time for war, then everybody else that goes to war always speaks and prepares for war, sometimes a generation before the battle.
Well, yeah, okay, so that's a good point. But what I'm saying is, okay, we have some people that is speaking the language. Well, our people see everybody wants to be a leader, which is cool. But at the end of the day, we gotta be able to listen and follow suit at some point, because not just follow suit, but everybody needs to get on one accord. And right now we just so divided, and it's just like mixed messages everywhere. Some people, chanting it's time to go to war. Some people isn't. And then, like, when you come together and you have white individuals that, basically calling you out, then it's time. And, it's time to do something. Not turn the other cheek. So, what I'm saying is, if you're going to get out there and you're going to talk the talk, walk the walk. If you're not going to walk the walk, then, when will it be time? It's like, ugh.
Right. I agree. I understand your frustration, because I also feel the frustration. But I think that our militancy is making us more vulnerable to violence, because the militancy is irrational and it's reactionary. So I think what we actually really need to do is to begin more talking, more engagement, more research, more cognitive engagement and development, not less. Now I know that's frustrating people, because we for years we've had this rhetoric of talking is bad, but talking is absolutely necessary. We have to keep engaging with these thoughts and struggling with these concepts.
But see, I agree with that. But don't amp me up and get me out here with you, and I'm finna assault someone because they doing the wrong thing, and you Negroes leave me out here hanging. See,
right.
That's not what I'm.
Yeah. I mean,
we're gonna jump. We all need to jump.
We definitely need better methodologies and practices and follow through. Yeah, this is definitely a refinement. I feel you. I understand. But I only thing I don't agree with you on is saying we got to stop talking until the war. No, we need to do more intense talking.
No. And I didn't explain myself well. What I meant was, because I was speaking on the situations here, and you got people like myself that I don't feel the need to march. But if I come out there and with my people, because I realize the energy and that we bring, that when it's time to get out here and you talking about some, we want justice and we tired, we not going, and we ready, this, that, and the other, and then you have people that congregants that come out there and speak away and disrespect, and then you have a few that's putting them in their place, that's jumping, but everybody else keep on kumbaya and going on down the street. No,
right.
See, you're not ready, so don't try to. I don't know. I'm gonna leave it alone.
I understand. Look, listen, sister, keep listening. I think you're on the right page. This, like I said, this is it's a refinement.
Mm-hmm.
It's a refinement process. So, yeah, you're gonna make the pitfalls, but as long as your ultimate objective is true, then as you go through these trials, it's just it will fire will burn out the impurities.
Okay.
So, and what was your name again?
Ivory.
Ivory. Okay. I appreciate you. I thought you said Ivory. I just wasn't sure. I know a lot of Ebonies. I don't know many Ivories. You went the whole other way with it. So,
all right.
but I do appreciate you calling in, and I hope you continue to listen and call back again, sis.
Yes, I enjoyed your show today.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye. You
All
have a
right.
good day.
You too, sis. All right. So yeah, the frustration is real and it's legitimate, and I accept it. I'm glad we frustrated because contentment is much worse than frustration. If you're content, I may have more of an issue with you than if you're frustrated. But let's move on. There is a lot of toxicity in the system, and because we're not willing to evaluate the toxicity, because a lot of our defense mechanisms go up, especially for black men. Because you say, oh, toxic masculinity. So black men, anytime you say toxic, black men still want to shut down. Oh, you want to talk about it, and they want to start to whimper and cry about their manhood not being respected. And like I am discovering, alpha males get catty as hell when they feel challenged. They go from alpha to the very thing that they claim to be the anathema of. They go from being alpha to being catty and emotional. I like these females. You know, if you call them a female, you know, and so they think it's contradictory to me. It doesn't make sense. It's irrational. But moving on. Let's talk about militancy, because we felt that it seems like a contradiction that the nonviolent passive Negroes were able to achieve more in terms of fighting back overt racism, racist policies and practices, and bring concession resources, whether it's affirmative action. And I know y'all like to scoff at the stuff y'all got for free. Y'all like, oh, it ain't gonna bother y'all talking liberation, but you wouldn't be able to talk liberation if not for the sacrifices of your God-fearing ancestors. And so why are we losing ground even though we have more and more black people espousing militants? And I think we first have to understand militancy. Militancy is basically committing violence or being willing to commit violence in the name of a ideological or social idea or movement. Meaning that if you're willing to fight for what you believe in, you're essentially a militant. That's why I say Barack Obama, even though we don't call you militant when you fight for the system, this is a militant system. They will kill you for what they want and what they believe. But because this is the establishment, because it's legitimate, we don't use words like militancy. We reserve that for poor people, for people outside of the accepted normal system. So, you have different types of militants, but Obama has been the most militant black man in history simply because he's had more military capacity. There's never been a black man who was over the U.S. military before, but he was the commander-in-chief. And he unapologetically and relentlessly used the armed services to advance his ideas. He is a capitalist. He is a Zionist. He is an imperialist. And he killed hundreds of thousands of people to advance those ideas. By the purest definition of militancy, Barack Obama was a militant man, but he was toxic militancy. So we thought, especially in the Black Power era, as I said, Dr. King didn't even want to use that word black and power together because he felt it was too provocative. And he didn't want to alienate his white allies. But Dick Gregory told Dr. King, we didn't corrupt the word power, white folks did. You know, so we shouldn't be afraid to use something. We can have black power. Just because white people have corrupted their power doesn't mean black people should shun power. So Dick Gregory was actually one of the first elders in the struggle, or the longtime strugglers who actually endorsed the concept and the call for black power. And when Kwame Ture stood up and said black power, a lot of people shifted from the integrationist struggle to the black power and black liberation movement. Because we had never heard it. It was actually, now it means nothing now. You go to a rally, you go to a cook, everywhere you go, you hear black people saying black power buttons, black power t-shirt, but we don't study black power. We just like the phrase, how it rolls off our tongue. But the black power was a constructed agenda. And when Kwame Ture said, and when Malcolm X said, you put your hands on me, I'll break it, there was a lot more to it than just simply breaking racist white folks' fingers. And we've dropped a lot of it. We've held the militancy, but we've left the component. And let me tell you something, that I want to identify specific forms of militancy, because militancy, toxic militancy, is disruptive. It's counterproductive. it's reactionary, and it's actually an asset to our oppressors, not a liability. It's a liability to the community. When the original concept of militancy was to be a direct, deliberate, and real, clear and present danger and threat to our oppressors. Like when J. Edgar Hoover said that the Black Panther Party was the #1 threat to the national security of the United States. That's what we thought militancy was, scaring the hell out of good white folks, keeping white folks in check. But militancy has come back to bite us in our ass. And the reason why is not because militancy is bad, but because we have mismanaged it. And I want to identify the specific forms of militancy. You have prophetic or puritanical militancy. Militancy that is based on religious concepts or faith-based militancy. And it was a time where the faith-based community was inherently nonviolent in the black community. Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Reverend Abernathy. We had all these reverends, all these ministers who told us Jesus said turn the other cheek. And then we started having the emergence of these religious sects and religious cults that said, nah, I'm gonna be a deacon for self-defense. I love Jesus, but I'll bust a cap in your ass quick in the mug. Right? And so you had these prophetic. But the problem with this is that at the same time, these prophetic puritanical militants say that they will shoot you, they will fight you, they will carry guns, they are armed and for self-defense. They also preach that our ultimate liberation will not come from an armed uprising, that our ultimate liberation will come from an act of God. Even Malcolm X, before he was enlightened, before he abandoned the cult of the Nation of Islam and started the OAU, he was saying that God's punishment will come down on America. So what is the point of being militant if you believe that a prophecy will save you? The prophecy, you can be militant to protect yourself as an individual, but in terms of your ultimate liberation, your ultimate salvation will come from a higher force. And as I said, the Nation of Islam, or prophetic or puritanical toxic militants, the Black Hebrews, and I hate to say this, I hate to say it, but I gotta tell it, I gotta keep it real. The 5%, the nation of the guys in the earth, prophetic, militant, toxic militancy. Even though I love a lot of 5%ers, I got enough respect, and 5%, what they did for hip hop can never be the debt that the genre of hip hop owes to 5%, the nation of guys in earth, can never be repaid, but they fit the profile. The Nuwapians, that cult. Other black militants, a lot of black Islamic sects, too many to name. Dominionist and black evangelicals, and that's the other side of the spectrum. You know, a lot of these black men are joining groups like the Promise Keepers, and I'll whoop your ass quicker than a bitch. A lot of black evangelical, dominionist, right-wing, pro-Trump black Christians are very militant. And they believe in the Second Amendment, and they show up at these rallies with shotguns standing right next to their good white friend in his Confederate hat. But ultimately, they say you can use guns to defend yourself or your property, but your ultimate liberation, so there's really no cause to expand that militancy into a armed militia or faction, because God is going to deal with it. The ultimate fate of the world is in God's hands. That is very toxic. And what happens is that people who believe in prophetic liberation and prophetic militancy tend to only beat down people to follow the sect. They tend to start to internalize. You'll find there's a lot of internal abuse. Like the Black Hebrews have very high levels of domestic abuse. The community overall has epidemic levels of domestic abuse. But I mean, the Black Hebrews have a pandemic. It's almost universal within the sect. Because you're militant, but you don't use your militancy to fight the state, because God is going to save you from the state. So you use your militancy to keep your members in line, keep your woman in line, to check all these infidels and these fools. So you become an antagonistic threat to the community, an armed threat to your own damn community. Look at the Nation of Islam. How many white blue-eyed devils have they killed? Versus how many black people have been intimidated, attacked, and even killed by a Nation of the Islam, starting with Malcolm X on down the line. So that's a form of toxic militancy. But then there's another secular puritanical. You got prophetic or religious or cultist puritanical militancy, but then you also have secular puritanical militancy. Again, these are armed black people that don't tell us that our Savior will come as an act of Allah or an act of God or divine retribution. They don't have some mythical or mystical belief system. They are essentially secular. They don't teach you that you're God and your woman is they don't have these supernatural concepts embedded in their ideology. They're secular. They're academic, supposedly. But they still are puritanical. They still want to have puritanical social relations. Woman, bow to your man type stuff. Homosexuals are the downfall of civilization. Children need to be silent and in the corner, and the man dominion over the house. So those are a lot of tribal Afrocentrics. My form of being African, my manifestation of Africanity is the only legitimate form of being African. This is what an African does, and this is what an African doesn't do. And you can be black, you can be born and raised on the continent of Africa, but if you don't behave in this way and you don't think these particular thoughts, you're not an African. And you'll find them all over social media telling people, you ain't African, you ain't African, you ain't African, because it's a tribalistic mind state. You find it on the continent. I mean, the militant tribalism is no threat to white people. You got the Hutus and the Tutsis hacking each other to death. You got Africans hacking each other to death in the Congo, in Nigeria, Yorubas and the black Islamists or Arabized Muslims. You got black people militant in their Africanity, their African identity. They're so strong in their African identity, they will take up a machete or take a shotgun and end your freaking life if you challenge it. But because it's so limited, their very concept of what it means to be African is so limited. All that militancy is no threat to the European. I got Africans coming to me from far away as Kenya, want to fight with me, but won't fight the colonists right there on your doorstep because I'm not being African the proper way. But then also the straight pride movement or the black decency movement, it's not it is undertone of evangelical Christianity, but because they're not Christian and they know the white man is the devil and the white man is a homosexual and Greco-Roman and this and that, so they're secular essentially, but they've got Western puritanical positions and they're very militant. They'll punch you in the face. You know, the black decency, the straight pride movement invited David Banner to speak. And David Banner said nigga on the stage. And they were ready to rip him off the stage because they're so militant. But they're no threat to the status quo because they essentially want black people to conform to the status quo. They want black people to be well behaved. They wanted to recreate this never existing Leave It to Beaver type reality. So you have secular Puritans that are no different than a prophetic or religious Puritan, toxic natural. And militancy is supposed to be a threat to your enemy, not a threat to your own damn people. If you are more of a threat and intimidating force to your own community, people within your own community, and not an intimidating force to people outside your community that harm your community, you know, we got people walking around our community right now scared to criticize Farrakhan, scared to speak openly against Dr. Umar. But we have like parasitic merchants, Asian, Arab, white people come into our community and exploit us, throw our grandmothers on the street, evict them from the house, slumlords that walk in and out of our community without any fear of these militants. Don't even know the militants exist. There's a video floating around from Memphis, Tennessee. The black Hebrews did this march, and they all standing there in their purple regalia, wearing their Yahweh Rangers studded makeup and funny clothes. And they show white people standing around. Oh, Lord, look at these. And these black men stand in the middle of the street. Yo, I will protect my family. I will. And white folks are looking like, what in the world is going on? Is there a fried chicken convention? But if the white people standing there really knew the fundamental ideology, that the black Hebrews don't hold the white man accountable for slavery because the slavery became as a result of black man's refusal to adhere to his covenant with God. And they knew that ultimately God, once we all align ourselves and return to our true self as the lost tribe of Israel, descendants of the tribe of Judah, then God will come down and reset the world. They would understand these niggas standing here in the middle of the street, yelling, huffing and puffing, sticking out their shirt, toting guns, and talking about retribution and Armageddon are not a threat to us. They're more of a threat to their own people. So, the puritanical, secular puritanical, or regressive Pan-Africanists, like the Umar and Tariq. Umar and Tariq, you see Tariq, you can go online and see Tariq whooping ass on the internet. Him and Sotomayor, who is also a secular Puritan. They fight each other more than they fight our enemies. And they'll tell you, oh, I got my guns, and they love to show you their guns. I'm not defined as a militant because I don't use talk about violence very much in the concept of me committing violence against other people. But I have owned a gun all my life. I train. I will defend myself. I train in martial arts. I will defend myself if it comes to that. But I understand right now we need more economic, social, political education and mobilization than we do twirling guns around. I wish the revolution was at that stage, but people like to play, revolutionary guerrilla when we could have, administrators. We need more administrators than we need warriors. We need more competent bureaucrats than we need warriors at this stage of the struggle. But anyway, then we have the black conservatives, black policemen and soldiers. Again, some of these titles cross-section. The black survivalists and black militia members. Many of you, if you live in the major cities especially, you won't know that there's quite a few black men that are part of the survivalist and militia movement. And in the 90s, when Clinton was president, Clinton brought a lot of attention to the militia and survivalist movement, but now it's kind of faded in obscurity. They got like doomsday. They call it preparation now. They used to call it the survivalists, and after they got a lot of bad press, they call it prep. But they have conventions all over the country. I've been to a few of them. People making bunkers and buying, waiting for the end of the world, whether it's through collapse of the government or Satan coming to reign dominion over and mark of the beast. But there are a lot of well-armed black conservatives who are willing to shoot and fight and kill for their ideas. But still, ultimately, they see black people as the threat. Black people unwilling to assimilate to America. Black people making excuses for our own failures and that. So they're more of a threat to us. And finally, one of the most common forms of misunderstood forms of militancy and misinterpreted forms of toxic militancy is gangsters. Street niggas, gangster culture. And a lot of athletes and entertainers have adopted this gangster persona. You have a lot of athletes, they want tattoos and they got that swagger and they hang out with gangster rappers. And this pimp, big pimping, I'm a swagger, hot cars, and this concept of gangsters are a militant sect. Their ideas now, they don't have high-minded ideas like the black Hebrews of black people being the chosen people or the Nation of Islam, black nationalism, or Umar with his black Puritanism and black patriarchy. Their idea is materialism and consumption. But it's still, that is an ideology. Now, because materialism and consumerism is such a powerful, pervasive ideology, it's like a fish in water. You don't even notice it as an ideology. You just think that's the way people like to have in things. Getting money is just what it is. Getting money, but we don't see those as ideology. Now, if I say I want liberation for African people, they'll be like, oh, he has an ideology. But if I say, yeah, I'm trying to get out here and get this money, get paid, they'll be like, yeah, you're breathing. That's just the normal way. But getting money is an ideology. Materialism and consumerism is another ideology that you, just like all others, you have to be either educated or indoctrinated into. And so the gangsters will kill you for their ideas of, I want more. I want the finer things. I want the nicer car. And then when I get a nice car, I want to trick it out and things of that nature. It's a militant, toxic militant sect. And we all know, like Dick Gregory said, black gangsters can get on an airplane with the Uzi hanging out their back pockets, and white folks won't say nothing because they know gangsters, black gangsters, kill other black people and prey upon and intimidate and disrupt other black people. So when militancy was first expressed in a white, we've always had black militants going all the way back to chattel slave. And we've got a lot of history and fiction written about the uppity niggas, the niggas that will punch a white man in the face in the dirty South. All of us, including myself and my wife, both have that family member that had to be smuggled out of the deep South back in the 30s and 40s because they didn't went upside a honky's head. They didn't slapped up a peckerwood because they wasn't having it. We've always had militancy, but militancy was more of an individual thing. But now we have an abundance of ideologies and thoughts and organizations that espouse militancy, that say that we will defend ourselves using arms, we will use deadly force to advance our ideas if we are directly threatened. Some of them are just talk. Some of them have backed it up and got a body count. The Nation of Islam has a body count. Umar doesn't have a body count, but I guess nobody has tested him, pushed him that far yet. But I guess we heard when him and Tariq see each other, it's on like Donkey Kong. But then they said the same thing, but Tariq ran into Sotomayor, and it was just a shouting match. Gums flapping. So, all the things I said, I support militants. I think any organization, movement, or ideology that is not militant is just nonsense. It is a waste of time and energy. I believe any ideology and movement should be prepared for armed conflict and be prepared for armed assault and have protocols and preparation and training for that and to respond for that. I support militancy. But I also have to acknowledge that militancy has eroded into something that is more of a liability and disruptive of our community. If you see a group of black men walking down the black community with guns, that should give us a sense of safety. But nobody in their right mind feels safe with a group of black men walking in a huddle unless they have on a uniform of the state, a uniform of the military. Black people feel unease. And it's not because black people hate themselves, even though there's some of that, but mainly it's because we know from our own personal lived experience that generally armed militant black men are more of a threat to us than a source of protection. True militancy should be productive, meaning that we can build things. Saying, well, we're militant, so if we build something, you better not come burn it down. You better not come disrupt it, because there will be immediate and violent consequences. It should be protective. It should be defensive. It should be organized. It should be structured. It should be focused. And it should be reasoned above all else. You're not lashing out because of some prophecy. You're not lashing out because I am God, God, body, and man. And you're lashing out because it is a rational thing to do to protect yourself, your offspring, and your larger community as a source. We should be using violence to maintain stability, not to cause disruption. But we have misused and mismanaged the concept of militancy to the point where now we're getting black people to go back the other direction, where they don't want to hear nothing about militancy. They don't want to hear you talking like the sister called in. Y'all all talk, and we're going back to passivity. And militancy was a thing that we fought hard for. It was a barrier there. It was a great psychological, cultural, and social barrier to ever even think about striking a white man who has already struck you, killed your son, and raped your wife, and it still was a mental block. I can't strike out at him. He is the embodiment of God. He is the embodiment of pure ideas. So the Europeans understood they couldn't stop our militancy, so let it corrupt it. And many of us have aided him in corrupting our militancy. So I say that we start to talk about militancy. We start to understand militancy. We still arm ourselves as a people. We still take the stance that we will defend our lives even if it means taking your lives. That we will fight and die for justice and even kill for it. I still say we maintain that militant streak, but we need to start discussing these toxic manifestations of militancy. That is a serious problem, and it is emerging, and there are several cults and ideologies and sects that are taking on this militant ideas and personas, and they are a great threat, not just to us as individuals, but to the very viability of our movements and the very legitimacy of our movements. And if you want to continue this discussion, get at me across social media. And everybody that I named, go on and tell them I named them. Because it's true, and we got to start being accountable. We got to expose. And I'm not saying nothing about nobody that can't be confirmed, documented, and they haven't said about themselves. So I know I called a lot of names, but somebody got to start calling names. Some dude was talking about me being a scrawny vegan who thinks I'm all that, but he didn't want to say my name. And I think, it's like Brother Adolfo said, we need to start having these open, honest discussions. And I would prefer to keep the discussion civil, but hey, truth is truth. And if you don't like what I'm saying, come with your counter evidence to disprove what I'm saying. But I got more good news. And if you are a militant, if you are a black man or a black woman who's gone to the gun range, a black man or a black woman that ain't gonna take no guff off of no racist, and you give as good as you get, and the lynch mob show at your door, you're gonna take at least one of them with you. If we must die, we'll die fighting with our backs to the wall. One of my favorite poems, If We Must Die. I'm gonna have to pull that up and play it. If you're one of those black people, make sure that your militancy is not just violent, that it is protective, productive, defensive, organized, structured, focused, and reasoned, rational militants. That's all I ask. Let me give one more part of good news, and I got to play my Fred Hampton recording. It's Fred Hampton Day, y'all. Seun Kuti will be in town Sunday, September 2nd, at the African Festival of the Arts, Washington Park, 5100 South Cottage Grove. I will be there. And if you want to hear a wonderful legacy of Afrobeat music, conscious music, progressive, uplifting music, invigorating music, please come out with me and to see Brother Seun. Again, Seun Kuti is performing in Chicago, Illinois, this Sunday, September 2nd, 2018, at 8:45. He goes on stage at 8:45, but this is a festival, so you can bring your lawn chair, bring a tent, bring I don't know if they let you have food in, because they have food vendors. Oh, there'll be thousands of vendors, wonderful African art. And let me tell you something about the African Festival of Art. You see the who's who of the cultural community. All the brothers, all the conscious brothers, the spiritual, the seculars, the angry black men, the enlightened, chakra-aligned brothers and sisters. Everybody's there. We all get to set aside our minor differences and greet each other. And if you ain't seen the people, and you don't want to wait till Kwanzaa for the next black huddle up, everybody's there. People you love, people you want to question, you got questions for or questions of. So come on out. It's like a cultural, ideological, black Afrocentric family reunion. And it's a multi-day fest. I can't afford to be there every day. I'm going to have to scrape some money together to get there on Sunday. But I'm going to be there to support our progressive artists and progressive arts. And if you can't make it on Sunday, the festival actually starts today. It's a nice sunny day. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. But I'll be there at the Seun Kuti, so I'll be at the festival, on the festival grounds Sunday. I'll probably be there in the early evening, around 5, and I'm going to stay to the end of the performance. So please come out to the African Arts Festival. That's the bit of good news. And in case you ain't heard, in case you ain't up on it and you don't want it, I'm going to share with you some music by Seun. And so you just get a little sample of what you hear. Some of my favorite songs from his. I'm gonna play some old, but I guess it ain't old. He's still a young buck. But I'm gonna play some of his earlier music, and I'm gonna play some of his newer music, and then we're gonna hear from the late great Chairman Fred Hampton. Please stay tuned. This is Q4 Radio, Q4.org. You can find us on the TuneIn app, iTunes Radio, and if you're in the Chicago area, you can find us on the radio at AM 1680. This is the Bro Diallo Show, and this is the African icon, Seun Kuti, African Soul. I'm going off live, but I'm going to be on the air till 10 a.m. Stay tuned. I got a lot of good material and music for you, so please stay tuned. And I'll see y'all on live again Wednesday. Peace.